Welcome to the Tea Grannies. I'm Elise.
And I'm Maria. Today we're here to talk about our NaNoWriMo progress and how to deal with writing burnout. So pour yourself a cup of tea and let's get started.
Captain's Log, November 19th, 2021. We are recording this in the middle of the flood apocalypse in British Columbia, Canada. We are both grateful to be safe, and our families are safe, and we are all okay, but it is a wild world out there, and you never know when you might just hit a new lake on the highway, so we're both staying home.
Or just run out of highway right into nothingness.
Yep, there's just no highway left, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
Don't get in your cars, kids. But we're not newscasters, so that's not what we're actually here to talk about. We're not going to bore you with the details. You can look it up on CBC. That's my favorite radio station. Just a little plug there.
Little plug.
Anyways, we are just over halfway through NaNoWriMo and decided we'd do another little progress update and then talk about some of the issues we encounter in the later half of the month. We talked about getting started, we talked about the mid-month slump, and now we're going to talk about burnout and what happens when you turn a marathon into a sprint for 30 days. So, for my part, I took the sprinting very seriously and have made it to 45,000 words as of today. I hit that mark today, this morning, which is crazy. I haven't written in the past 3 days. Today's the first time I've written in the past 3 days, but I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like this is still a win because I only have 5K left to go, and I will be trying to finish that this weekend, but we will see. Life has not been going my way, as we have already established with the flood apocalypse. But anyway, I'm especially glad that I worked ahead this time because I hit my mid-month slump right on target. And not because of my story. My story was going fine. I got in a car accident before the floods happened. So there was that first and then the floods. And now I don't have a vehicle and I'm dealing with insurance, and that's just my writing progress just kind of tanked after that. So that just sucks all around. But I have big plans, good plans to write this weekend. And my story is still going well. My outline is still followable and mostly accurate. And I'm planning to finish this draft eventually in November, but I do still have a ways to go before I finish the actual draft. But winning Nano should be fine. I should be able to do that.
I think you can make it. I mean, you've got 11 days left to hit 5K more. I think you could do it.
As long as the apocalypse doesn't ramp up or anything, we don't get the zombies next, cool. I should be okay.
Yeah, I was really more prepared for zombies than floods. We have it was super kind of my husband to tell me after. Thankfully, we didn't have any flooding where I live, but after the flood happened, he goes, yeah, don't worry. We have an emergency kit, and a bug out bag and a generator. And I was like, what? Where?
So, the best part of that is that you didn't know.
I know. And I'm like, you're so prepared. I forgot he went through this whole doomsday prepping stage a few years ago, which ironically has worked out really well. But I was like, maybe you should have communicated that. Communication in a marriage is important. If you have a bug out bag, you should probably tell your wife so she can find it. But anyway, I don't have any reason to be kind of slumped, except for that's just where I'm at. I'm at 28,000 words, so I'm about 3,000 words behind as of today. And the struggle has been for me mostly, this is the second draft, which I talked about last time, kind of being tough for me. But the real struggle has been that this version is taking me in a different direction. And so I've been doing a lot more second guessing. Because of that, it's not going the way I had originally planned, although I'm sort of hitting some of the points on my outline. Sort of. I'm every time I open up my Scrivener, I'm like, I don't know what is going on right now.
Oh,
what am I writing? So I'm already making editing notes, and I've written like 15 chapters. So yeah, that's fun. So, I'm hoping in the second half I can hit my stride with it a little bit.
Find some clarity.
Yeah, and like I've got to get a little caught up, but I do have this weekend kind of squared away for that. And then we'll see. My husband went back to work, which I was hoping would mean I would have less distractions. What that ended up being is I don't have someone going, did you hit your NaNo word count yet? In the background every day. And so when he gets home from work at like 5, he's like, how was writing? And I'm like, it was terrible.
Shoot.
It was bad. So, I actually think maybe having him home was more helpful than I thought it was. I thought he was distracting me a lot, but because I'm so like ADHD sometimes, I think having those breakups into my writing time was very helpful. So yeah, I'm gonna work on it this weekend. I sound unsure because I really, really am not trusting myself right now. I have to win though. I feel like I have to win because I want to finish this draft before Christmas. I don't write at Elise's pace, as we all know. My 28,000 words, and she's at like 45,000. So it's going to take me a little longer, but I'm hoping to finish it by Christmas. That's the goal, and then we'll go from there.
But I was just going to say too, like you write a skinny first draft, which means that if you feel like you're leaning too hard in one direction, not getting enough like fantasy elements, too many romance elements, when you go into your process of adding words, you should have an easier time adding those fantasy elements in to balance it out because you have space.
That's true. I will have space. And I actually have already made a big note about the world building because I realized I've really skimped on it. And I was like, oh, that is probably like, I mean, maybe not for every writer. For me, that's one of the easiest things to do when I go back through and edit is like pop in world building here and there. That's actually really easy for me. So I'm like, okay, like stop worrying about that so much. You're going to do that later. So that did help. Yesterday, I hit like 1,900 words. So I finally got somewhere. But I think the worst was I had a 0-word day this week. I just didn't have time. I had to drive to Vancouver. This is the day after the flood apocalypse. I had to drive to Vancouver, which was fine. The drive down there was fine. The highway was intact. I was getting my tattoo touched up, very essential things. And then I had to drive back at rush hour.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So part of me thought I had the 0-word day. And I'm like, that's okay. It was like a day off. I'll hit it again tomorrow and I'll be like, no problem. And then it actually kind of took away some of my forward momentum. So I wasn't expecting that. So
yeah,
I'm going to try and get that feeling back. I feel like once you've got that momentum, it's easy to maintain it. But it was the stopping and then now having to start again. That's been rough.
Yeah, that's definitely a hit on the motivation. And that can sometimes be the hardest thing to get back. Mid-month slump, here we are. But yeah, that brings us very easily into our talk about challenges while drafting for NaNo. So we've already kind of covered time management and life management. Life just gets in the way sometimes. And you can't really plan for it, but you kind of have to expect it. So I think those are the biggest challenges we usually talk about in this season. But I came across another one this month, an interesting one that I wasn't expecting. So if you follow me on Instagram, you may have noticed some of my reading updates on there and that I've hit my reading goal twice this year, which is very exciting, mostly because I set the bar extra low for myself because I didn't think I'd have time. But I ended up reading 50 books by September, which felt crazy because that meant, I'm halfway through the year. I should be able to read 100. That would be great. That would be amazing. I've always wanted to read that many in a year. So I was feeling pretty amazing, like I was a superhero and everything, and then after that point, I just stopped. The reading was over. There was no more of that. So not entirely, but for perspective, I was reading 2 to 3 books a month from the beginning of the year, and then in September, since then, I've barely scraped by with 1 a month. Like, I can just barely hit I'm borrowing them from the library as ebooks, and I can barely finish reading them before they're due. They have to go back. I'm losing them in 2 days or whatever. So I was trying to figure out what it was. Like, it was just, am I too tired, too busy, just not, I don't feel like reading. What is the problem? No, I've been tired and busy all year, so that can't be it. And the only thing that I noticed that had actually changed was I started trying to draft a book. I started writing book 3 of the Nymph Keepers at the end of August. So that's when I noticed that's when it kind of clicked for me that I don't like to read when I'm drafting a book. When I'm writing the first draft of a book, I should say, because you can be revising and writing a second draft, and that's different. But when I'm into that first draft, almost the discovery stage, for some reason, reading is not a priority. And actually, I actively maybe tried not to. So I was thinking about it, and I think I've heard other writers talk about this. Some of them don't, like that's a rule that they have for themselves. They don't read while they're drafting a story. And I think the basic reasoning for that was one of two things, or both, that they compare themselves to other writers too much. I know I do that. I read a really good book and it's like, oh, I'm never going to be on that level. And then you get that imposter syndrome and you lose motivation, and it's just, yeah. So if you're drafting, a good way to avoid that is to not read books by your favorite authors. Because that's intimidating. And then the other one is that when I'm reading, I noticed this, especially when I was first started writing as a teenager, I basically plagiarized everything that I ever read. Like I was reading Hunger Games, so I wrote the next Hunger Games. I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean, so I wrote the next Pirates of the Caribbean. So not just with books either, I do it with movies too. But it's easier to get distance from it with books because that's the medium I'm working with. So when I'm reading, what I'm reading influences what I'm writing. And it can be subconscious. So I think my natural defense mechanism for that is to not read as much when I'm writing so that I can get immersed in the world that I'm trying to create and get completely wrapped up in it. And then I'm not bringing in elements from someone else's world or story and trying to add all these ideas that I never intended. So I think I just learned that maybe by osmosis. I learned to read less while I was writing and learned to immerse myself in my own worlds, because how can you be immersed in two separate fantasy worlds at the same time? They'll start to merge together and get mixed up. So that's how I limit that. But it's also been a challenge for me because I like reading and I'm trying to read all these books and my TBR keeps growing and growing and never ever ending.
I have so many books to read, and I have a buddy read planned in January for Priory of the Orange Tree, which I'm really excited. So that's one of the other reasons I want to finish my draft by then, because I didn't realize it till you told me that it can be really hard to read while drafting. Because I was like, I'm in such a reading slump. Like I've picked up like 3 different books that I know that I will like. Read the first, like maybe the first chapter, and I put it down.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what tipped me off, because you and I were in the same spot and it's like, that sounds like a pattern to me.
That's where I kind of fall back on like comfort reads, for like, which for me is like Regency romance is like one of my comfort reads, or like a reread of something. And so I've been doing a bit of that this month, but it's a little tough because I like to write book reviews for our Instagram like every week. And that's usually not a problem. I'm usually like 5 books ahead of what I'm reviewing or what I'm posting. That is not currently happening. But someone was very kindly like, why don't you just post some reviews for some old favorites? And I was like, you genius. So that's what everyone's getting on the gram this month, because I was like, I can't do both. A lot of my Regency romance is on my Kobo because I don't love the covers. So I don't buy a lot of those romances because I just don't like the covers very much. Yes, I judge a book by its cover.
We all do that.
I'm not ashamed to say it. So that's been tough for me. And like I've been reading in October, I read 14 books. So I went from reading 14 books to not being able to read a single book. And I was like, I'm broken.
Oh, no.
Something's wrong with
No,
me.
you're just drafting.
Why can't I read? And like I put my to be read pile like right in front of my face recently, because I'm like, I gotta look at it. Like I'm trying to read, like usually I'm a mood reader. I'm trying to like pick up what's in order so I can like get kind of to some of the books I was really looking forward to that I for some reason haven't picked up yet. And so they're right in front of my face, like mocking me. And there's like, and then I got some more books because I obviously have a shopping problem. And so now it's like 12 books high. And I was like supposed to finish that by the end of December, which seemed like a super easy goal when I set it in October. I haven't touched one of them in November. And they're all going to be so good. I want to like do them justice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I've kind of, I'm only reading if I just sort of feel like reading like a Regency romance, you know, where a little communication would have them married in like the first 3 chapters. Like, but I've been reading stuff like that. And I love that. That's my shit. I love romance, which is actually one of the other things that we're talking about is if you're reading a lot of romance, say, your draft might start to swing that way, which is what is happening to me with this draft. Is it's going a little bit more towards romance. And I think it's because I've been heavily reading romance. So maybe before I edit, I should read a fantasy.
Maybe.
And then I can go fix my world building. But yeah, like back to challenges. I got a little sidetracked with our reading chat. For me, one of the biggest challenges in Nano, which I predicted for myself, was the time management thing. So yeah, that was my main struggle. When I did have time, I was tired and I didn't really feel like writing, or I'd like, you know, do the procrastination thing where I'd be like, I'll do this one thing and then I'll write, you know, and then it was bedtime and I was like, oh no, I barely wrote. I guess it's time for bed now, whatever. A little bit of that. And then when I have lots of time, I kind of just spent it mucking around. And if you follow us on Instagram, you already know that because you see me there way, way, way too much. And I'm doing a great job of encouraging other people on their Nano goals. And I should probably take back some of that time. But it's fun seeing everybody doing so well. So that's a little tough. And the other thing, like I said, I was getting a little stuck in my story with like it going a different way than my first draft did. It's actually a vastly different story. Like the first 2 chapters are the same and that initial premise is the same, but now it's changed so much otherwise. But it was interesting. I was on Instagram again the other day and B.E. Schwab posted an interesting quote to her story. And she said that she'd worked on a chapter all morning and then realized it was all wrong. And then she said, often we have to write through wrong to find right. So I thought that was quite fitting for what I was going through. And I was like, yes, okay, I can write through this chapter wrong. And like I've said before, I have like a folder of extra scenes. I can write the correct version of that in extra scenes. It still counts for Nano and I can move it out later. And, you know, we all are guilty of this, like trying to make our first draft as perfect as possible. The first draft is never perfect. And I don't know why every time I sit down, like this is going to be the best first draft anyone's ever read. It never is.
Nope. That was a very fitting quote for me because I'd just done exactly that during one of our sprints, like the day before or something. I had written like a bunch of words. I was like, okay, this is working, it's coming. And then I got to the end of those words and I looked back and I was thinking for a minute, I was like, where am I going to go from here? And realized I was writing in the wrong direction. I was about to fall into a hole and then I wouldn't be able to get out. So I was like, okay, we're scrapping that. And I just put a strike through all of it so that the words were still there. I could still count them toward my goal because I did write them. That counts. Yeah. But I put a strike through and then I started the new perspective. And I try not to do that too much while drafting because it often, you know, bogs you down and makes you go into editing mode and everything. But because I realized I was writing myself into a dead end, I knew I had to switch things around. And I immediately had like, oh, I should have started the chapter here instead. So I had that already and then I just dove in and it worked out. But I had that feeling too of like, I got through most of the chapter and realized I have to get rid of all of this. None of this is working. And it's crushing. It really is. Okay, so we were talking about, wow, amazing discoveries of how we don't read and draft because that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I had another eureka moment this Nano. And I think we had it together because we were talking about how is it possible to like get all these words in 30 days in this such a short time frame, and then the rest of the year it's like, are we just slacking? Like, are we just pretending that we can't do any better? But no, I think we hit on something that's pretty important. Like, if you try to put that level of productivity for the entire year, it's going to be way more difficult because that's, as we said, we've turned a marathon into a sprint. and we want to push that sprint for a really long time, which is not what sprinting is for. You're supposed to go short distances, but we're kind of messing with that. But when I compared the NaNo experience to my experience with rock climbing, because I do that a few times a week when I'm not injured from car accidents, it makes more sense. So I always hated running. Running was not a sport I could get into because I never felt like I was getting anywhere, pun intended, by making progress. Like I'm always running, I'm always tired, I'm always out of breath, I feel disgusting, and I hate it. That's just kind of my entire experience with running. And I applied that to all sports until I discovered rock climbing again in my adult life. And now we go 3 times a week. And the reason I think I like it so much is it's kind of like a checklist for me, and then I can see my progress every week. So the different climbs that we do are graded by difficulty, and once you start getting a really good feel for a certain level of climb, you can move on and try some of the harder ones and see how you do, and then keep working on those until those feel easy, and then you move on to the next level. And it's very clear cut of like, what grade of climber am I, and what do I need to do to get into the next grade? And I see that with NaNo because we are tracking our stats, which typically throughout the year we don't do. Yeah, we might say, okay, we're doing a sprint. I'm telling you how many words I'm getting right now. But we don't collect those into how many words did I get this month. The only time I track my word counts like that is during NaNo. And I think you pointed this out, like when you can see the actual progress that you're making, it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, that's something that's huge for me. I think that's why I like NaNo so much. It gives me like a solid comparison to like how much I wrote yesterday, how much I wrote today. I can look at the progress over the month, and I really like that. And it's when you're writing outside of NaNo and you're not tracking your word count or whatever, it sometimes just feels like you're not getting anywhere. Like I know for a lot of us too, like, you know, November we clear our calendars so we can write so much. Like in our regular life, sometimes you only get 200 words a day or 300 words a day, and it's very hard to feel like you're getting anywhere. And it's like when you're working out, it's hard to know when you've improved, and every workout makes you feel like you're dying, but you're probably pushing harder every time, you just don't know it. And I think that's why NaNo works so well, is because writing is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And the other thing that I think we maybe don't talk about enough is in NaNo, you're tracking your word count, but you're working that writing muscle. So your writing itself is improving. And that's something I think we forget. Like we do get a little caught up in the competition of NaNo. You're like, yeah, 2,000 words today, I'm killing it. But you know, if you write consistently, you're going to compare, just like we've said before, if you compare your work from a year ago to the work you're writing now, even your first draft now is probably better than your finished draft a year ago.
Right.
Like, because you're improving. So even if you're like, I'm not going to win NaNo this year, I'm not doing well enough to win, you're still improving. You just can't see it yet.
There you go. That's a huge plug for NaNo. Even if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, you're getting somewhere. You are. I like that.
Forward motion.
I like that a lot. Writing as a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. That's a quote for the books. Yeah, I like that a lot. That makes it kind of hard for me to like now jump into the flip side of the strength of NaNo. We just talked about how great it is. We wanted to touch on writing Burnout, which I think is a huge after effect of NaNo for a lot of people, because like we said, you are pushing yourself so hard for this short window. A lot of people are pushing through without any breaks. Like that's what I do. I think I burn myself out every week, and then I take a couple days off and try and recover, and then I do it again. Whereas it's like, no, I'm on a deadline. I got to get as many words out as possible. And even if I'm ahead, it's like, well, that final deadline is still over there and I haven't met it yet, so I need to keep going. So that's why, like, I'll sit down and I will write until I have 5,000 in one day or something, something wild and unreasonable. And I don't get up for breaks, and I don't take care of myself like I should. And I think that's kind of the dark side of the amazing work that we can do with NaNo, is it pushes writers into this burnout space because of the pace that we're setting. So yeah, if you think that you can get away with going through NaNo and then feeling completely normal and just keeping up the pace afterwards, think again. I recommend thinking again. And yeah, from personal experience this year, I think, I've already hit the burnout stage, or as I said, I may have hit it multiple times in the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to push through because I have a draft to finish. I have this goal, and I'm highly motivated to meet it. But I think this is one of those things that can fall under the category of writer's block, and I think it's important to make a distinction. So we've said in the past that writer's block is either a myth or it's just one way of saying I don't feel like writing today, or for whatever reason, that's what writer's block is. And writing burnout, that's another reason why the words just don't come sometimes. But I feel like, as with any kind of burnout in life or in any hobby or job or otherwise, it's a real indicator that you need to stop. Like, burnout is not good for you. It means that you're pushing yourself too hard, and you probably should have stopped a couple weeks ago, or at least slowed down and like taken a breather and taken a step back. But you've pushed yourself to this point of utter exhaustion, and now you have to like just stop everything in order to get it back, which is not a sustainable way to live if you really want to think about it that way. But you're on a deadline, or you have this idea that keeps hounding you and you can't put it down. So whatever the reason is, writing burnout is a thing, and Nano can exacerbate it. I think it can cause it, depending on how dedicated or how much time you have. And we'll just go through some quick things of what it can feel like. You might find yourself in this space. You might have one or two of them. This isn't like a psychological analysis where you have like here's all the symptoms of writing burnout, and if you have 5 or more, that's you. We're not trying to diagnose anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not clinically trained. Please see your medical professional. This is like, I need that disclaimer of this is not legal advice. You can't sue me if I get it wrong.
Also, like, this is what it feels like
yes,
for us. It might not it might manifest in a different way for you. And I think that's just, people are so different and lives are so different. Yeah. So, but if any of these sound similar, or you can like put them into your life's structure, then there you go.
Then you probably understand writing burnout. Yeah, but so for me, or for some of the things that we've talked about, the way that it feels is just, I have that blank page, blank brain. Like I'm staring at the page and I've got nothing in my head and the words just don't come. And it's like, well, I have my outline. I have my characters. I'm more than halfway through my story and I know where it's going, but it's not happening. Or you can get the words out. This has happened to me in the last couple of days. I can get the words out, but it's very few of them at a time. And I hate them all. They're all
that's
flaming piles of garbage to me. And I know, intellectually, I know if I send these to Maria, she'd be like, no, that's great. No, you're a genius. But reading them myself, it's like, no, I'm a trash genius. Like, this is just garbage. This is no. I should just strike through all of it and erase it and not even count it for Nano because it's so bad. So yeah, you can get a little bit upset about your competence. Let's put it that way. And then related to that, I think imposter syndrome then rears its ugly head more often and screams more loudly and is just a bigger voice than it otherwise would be, because you don't have any defenses. You're so tired and at kind of your wit's end, you don't have the defenses and the buffer that you need to fight off imposter syndrome on a good day. So there's that. And maybe you start to wonder, what's the point? Because, I mean, either you worry that no one's going to read it anyway, or you'll never be a good enough writer. How can you measure up to the greats? All those other things that we've talked about when it comes to imposter syndrome or just not feeling good enough. And then, yeah, this is like this. It's a deeper thing than the mid-draft slump where you kind of feel stuck. You might have everything right. Like I said, I have my outline and everything seems to be working. But you just can't get there. Nothing's working because the life that you have around you is too tiring or whatever else. This is why taking a step back is so important, because you're looking at this from a very stressed and negative lens. So you're more likely to scrap something that's actually good, but you're just not in a headspace to see it. So I'm looking at my flaming pile of garbage, and if I were to go take a nap or stop writing for a week and come back to it, I might actually realize oh no, that paragraph's actually pure gold and I'm going to win an award on that alone. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, it's not good to make decisions when you're in that headspace. So now that we have laid out all the dangers, why don't we talk about some ways to come back from this horrible pit of terror, despair.
A bit of despair. So imposter syndrome, I think, hits the hardest. especially because so many of us, like, writing is our passion and we want to make it our full-time job. So it's pretty easy I feel like imposter syndrome is the first one to knock on the door of your burnout. So when you're exhausted by something that you're usually hyped about, that's burnout. Honestly, it happens at work. It can happen with hobbies, like Elise said. And then you start asking yourself, like, what if you're not that good of a writer? What if this draft is not salvageable? What if you'll never be published? And this is all a fat waste of time. You could have been watching Netflix and drinking wine. Well, even if you're thinking all those things, you still have a first draft of a novel, or maybe you only have the first couple chapters. It doesn't matter. But for example, you've got the first draft done. How many people do you know outside of your writing community that have a first draft of a novel? I don't know any, aside from my writing buddies. So you've accomplished something awesome, and you should reward yourself and revisit your work once you've kind of refilled that creative well and you feel rested, and you can look at it without being so damn hard on yourself. I think that's the other thing that we all do to ourselves. So aside from imposter syndrome and dealing with that, rest is usually what you really need. You need to take a break. So a lot of the time after I finish a first draft, usually, especially after a first draft, less after edits, I usually take like up to a month's break from writing. Like, I don't write at all. Like, I read, I rest, I watch Netflix, I workshop pages for my writing group. And it gives me a break from writing, but it doesn't throw me out of the loop. Like, I'm still in the writing community and working. I'm still improving myself, actually, when I'm doing that, because workshopping is a great way to do that. Refill the creative well. So this is different for everybody, but it's usually kind of like consuming art instead of making it. So watch movies, read books. If you like to draw or paint or sew, like, those are also great things to do. And I think that's a good one. Reading is some of the best homework you can do for your own writing. So I tend to go on binge reading phases. So like I said, in October, I read 14 books. And I've read like 3 books in November so far. So, that's fine because I'm drafting, and that's something we already discussed. But yeah, I go through phases where I really binge, and that actually is usually what gives me ideas for my next project. But onward. Do things. So many of us get sucked into our routines, and we forget to get out of our comfort zone just in general. And we get so used to being on our regular schedule and hanging out in our house, and like COVID time all made us realize how much we like staying home. So, maybe go do something that you like that you haven't done for a while, like go to the movies, go for a bike ride, go for a hike, go to the Christmas lights show, something that jogs you kind of out of your day-to-day. I think that that's very good for your mental health, that life exists outside of writing. And that's very hard to remember when you've been living and breathing your draft. And, even if you're not actively writing or editing, you're still a writer. You don't stop becoming a writer because you're taking a break. And I think that we all put this pressure on ourselves that we should always be working on something, and you don't have to always be working on something. It's not required.
Yes, there is a life outside of these words on these pages.
Exactly. Even if those words consume us sometimes, you got to get away from them as well. Otherwise, your mental health will definitely suffer.
I think if I had to give like my biggest takeaway from this episode, would be rest, take a break, take care of yourself, do whatever it is that you need to do to be able to write again, because we're doing it because we love it, right? It's something that we want to keep doing. But as with any physical job or physical hobby that you do, if you push yourself too hard, you're going to break something, and then you have to rehabilitate yourself, and that might not be possible. You might not ever be able to get back up to where you were before. I've had to take so many breaks from climbing in the past 2 years. It's been so frustrating. Every time I get up to a certain level, I injure something, I'm in a car accident, or something happens, and I drop back down and have to try and work back up. And once you get in that cycle, it's hard to feel like you'll ever make it past that point. You feel like you're just going to be stuck. So yeah, that piece about resting and taking a break after Nano, like November 30th, you write what you got, and then you're done. you're taking a break for December or the first 2 weeks of December or whatever it is you think that you need. But I think that's an important thing to build into the NaNoWriMo routine if you're going to keep on doing it, if you want to feel like you can do it next year too, because otherwise you're going to come out of it feeling totally down and burnt out and just done. And then next year, are you really going to want to do it again? Even though you got all those words in and it was really great, you're going to feel like crap about it. And that's not going to be very motivating for the next time.
Like, you should come out of Nano feeling like exhausted, but really proud of yourself.
Yes.
That should be your goal. And then your reward should be a break and just kind of like enjoy your success, because most people will never write a novel in their lifetime. And we're just comparing ourselves to the other writers and all the books that we read. And, you know, you're doing good. You can take a break.
Absolutely. The people that are out there and have written are a small percentage of the population. If you look at the rest of the population, it's like half of them are like, writing sucks. I don't want to do that. You wrote 5,000 words today? That sounds horrible. How are you here? I have a friend like that. I tell him what my word count was, and he's like, ugh, what is your life? Like, why do you do that? So, you know, there's more to life, but there's also like, we're doing something that lots of people either would never do or they wish they could do, and they don't have the motivation or the time. They don't make the time for it, whatever it is. But yeah, you've done Nano, you've tried Nano, bare minimum, you tried it out to see how it would go. You're putting words in towards a project that you're passionate about. Feel very proud. Please feel very proud that you are a writer, you are an author, you are doing wonderfully beautiful creative work. And we need more stories. So
yeah, we always need more stories. I want my to be read file to be so long that I can never finish it.
I want to know that it will never be read before I die.
It'll never be done. Yeah. So everybody has to keep writing.
Yes.
That's my only demand. All right, well, that's the tea on writing Burnout and NaNoWriMo. All links will be in the show notes, and you can follow us on Instagram at the Tea Grannies Podcast and on Twitter at the Tea Grannies. See you in 2 weeks for our episode on first pages. Happy writing.